You put on music to help you fall asleep, and somehow it kept you awake. The trouble was never you. Sound arrives at the nervous system long before it reaches your thinking mind, and some of it quietly asks the body to stay on guard instead of standing down. A track can be lovely and still keep a part of you listening, tracking, half-braced for the next note. So, what is it about certain slow, low, gentle sound that lets a tired body finally loosen its hold and let go? Here is the part that comes apart from the popular story. The calm you have been chasing was never sealed inside one exact frequency, waiting for the right number to unlock it. It was never the magic number at all. Welcome to Sleepy Science. What settles you tonight is not a code to be cracked, but a nervous system that already knows how to come down once the sound around it stops asking for anything. Let the room grow quiet around you. Feel your breath slow on its own as the sound softens and your body remembers how to rest. So we begin where the sound itself begins, at the ear, and the quiet path it takes into the part of you that decides, moment by moment, whether it is safe to let go. There is a certain kind of tiredness that music alone cannot reach. You lie down, press play on something gentle, and still the mind keeps turning, as if the sound is happening somewhere far away from where you actually are. Underneath this whole hour rests one quiet question. Why do so many people believe a single frequency can guide the brain towards sleep? Sound and rest have always been linked, from the hush of rain to a voice humming in another room. Tonight we follow that link slowly, gently, without rushing toward an answer. We begin not with the number, but with the ear, and with a nervous system that has been waiting all day to let go. Complete silence rarely brings the deep quiet we hope for. In a truly soundless room, the brain does something curious. It turns its hearing up. With nothing to listen to, the auditory system strains for the smallest signal. A creak, a breath, a distant car. This heightened listening keeps a thread of alertness alive, the part of us that once stood watch through the night. Many people who cannot sleep in silence are not imagining it. Their attention has nowhere soft to rest. A gentle, steady sound gives that watchful part of the mind something predictable to hold, so it can loosen its grip. Silence, it turns out, is not always the same thing as calm. Not all music helps us drift, and some quietly keeps us awake. A song with words invites the language centers of the brain to follow along, tracing meaning, anticipating the next line. A track that rises and builds asks the mind to lean forward and wait for where it goes. This is the gentle trap many of us have felt, reaching for music to relax, only to find it holding our attention like a quiet conversation. It was never a failing on your part. The sound was simply doing what engaging sound does. What the drifting brain tends to favor is different. Something with less to decode, fewer surprises, and no story that demands to be finished before you let go. Of all the senses, hearing is the one that never fully closes for the night. Your eyes shut. Touch grows distant. Yet the ears remain open, quietly monitoring the dark. This is ancient design. For most of human history, sound was the earliest warning of what approached while the body lay defenseless. Even in deep sleep, the auditory system keeps a low watch, ready to rouse you at a sharp or unfamiliar noise. This is why sound holds such sway over rest. It reaches a part of the brain that stays partly on duty all night long, to work with sleep rather than against it. Sound has to reassure this listening sentinel that nothing in the dark asks for waking. The path a sound takes into the brain is quicker than thought. Vibrations in the air enter the ear and reach the cochlea, a tiny spiral that turns motion into nerve signals. From there, the auditory nerve carries the message into the brainstem, one of the oldest regions we have. Only afterward does the signal travel upward to the areas that recognize a melody or a voice. What this means is quietly telling. Sound touches the brain's arousal machinery before you have consciously understood what you heard. A tone can begin to settle or unsettle the body, a beat before the mind names it. The ear, in a sense, speaks to the nervous system first, and to your awareness second. Long before you decide whether a sound is pleasant, the brain has already asked a simpler question. Is this safe, deep in its older circuitry? Incoming sound is checked against a quiet expectation of the world. A sudden or jagged noise draws a flicker of alertness, a smooth, a familiar one passes through almost unnoticed. This scanning never truly stops, not even as you begin to fall asleep. It is not fear exactly, only a watchfulness woven into how we hear. Sound that repeats gently and predictably lets this scan relax. There is nothing new to evaluate. The kind of audio that helps us drift tends to be the kind that gives this ancient checkpoint permission to stand down. Beneath every calm or restless night runs a system you never consciously steer: the autonomic nervous system. It governs the quiet machinery of living. Heartbeat, breath, the widening or narrowing of blood vessels, the slow work of digestion. You do not choose these rhythms, yet they shape how ready your body is to rest. This system has two branches that lean in opposite directions. One that stirs you toward action and one that settles you toward recovery. Through the day, they trade the lead back and forth. Falling asleep is, in large part, a shift in which branch is guiding. And sound, arriving through those fast and ancient pathways, is one of the gentle influences that can tip that balance one way or the other. The first branch of that system is the sympathetic one, the part that readies you to meet the day. When it leads, the heart quickens, the senses sharpen, and the body prepares for effort or escape. It is not an enemy of sleep. It is the reason you can rise, respond, and move through a full and demanding day. Trouble comes only when it stays switched on into the night, still scanning, still braced, long after the day has ended. Many sleepless hours are simply this branch refusing to hand over the lead. loud, fast, or unpredictable sound tends to keep it engaged, whispering that the world still asks something of you. Rest waits until this watchful branch feels it can finally ease. The second branch is the parasympathetic one, often called rest and digest. When it takes the lead, the heart slows, breathing deepens, and the body turns its energy inward toward repair. This is the quiet ally of sleep, the state the whole night depends upon. You cannot force it forward by willpower, the way you cannot order yourself to relax on command. It arrives instead when the signals reaching your body suggest the surroundings are safe and unhurried. Slow, soft, predictable sound is one of those signals. It does not create sleep directly, but it helps set the conditions in which this gentler branch can rise. Much of what soothing audio does is simply invite this side of you to come forward. The two branches are always in conversation, and sound is one voice in that exchange. A sharp noise can pull you toward alertness in an instant, lifting the heart and tightening the breath before you know why. A low, even sound can lean the other way, offering the body a reason to soften. Neither happens because sound carries a magic property. It happens because the nervous system reads every sound as information about the world around you. Steady, gentle audio says, in effect, that the environment is calm and unchanging. Over minutes, that quiet message can help the balance tip from the alert branch toward the restful one. The frequency you choose matters far less than the steadiness and softness it carries. Your heartbeat listens to sound more closely than you might expect. When gentle, slow audio surrounds you, the heart often eases toward a calmer pace over the following minutes. This is part of a broader tendency for the body to loosely align its rhythms with the steady patterns it senses nearby. A slow, unhurried soundscape offers the heart a quiet model of calm to drift toward. It is a soft influence, not a sudden command, and it unfolds gradually rather than all at once. Yet, across a long, still evening, that gentle pull can matter. As the heart settles, the rest of the body reads the change as a sign that it is safe to descend a little further towards sleep. The same sensitivity works in the other direction. Fast, loud, or uneven sound tends to lift the heart rate and sharpen the body's readiness, even when you would rather be settling down. A track that surges and pauses, or music built to stir strong feeling, can quietly keep the pulse a little higher than rest prefers. This is why the sound that seems relaxing to the mind sometimes fails the body underneath. Your thoughts may enjoy the song while your heart stays subtly braced. For drifting into sleep, what tends to help is sound that stays low and even, giving the pulse no reason to rise. The aim is not stimulation, however pleasant, but a steady, quiet the body can lean into. Among all the qualities of sound, tempo carries a quiet weight. Tempo is simply how fast the beats arrive, and the body seems to notice it keenly. Music that moves near the pace of a resting heart, slow and unhurried, tends to feel calming. Quicker tempos gently nudge the system toward alertness. This is one reason a lullaby drifts so slowly, far below the speed of a daytime song. The pace itself carries much of the soothing, almost regardless of the notes chosen. When people search for the perfect, relaxing sound, they often focus on which tones to use. Yet how slowly those tones unfold may shape the body's response more than the particular pitch ever does. The brain is a quiet prediction machine, always guessing what comes next. With sound, it constantly forecasts the following note, the next beat, the coming moment of the pattern. When those guesses prove right again and again, the mind reads the world as orderly and safe. It can loosen its watch. Predictable sound is restful precisely because it asks so little. There is nothing new to brace for. This is why steady rain, a slow, repeating melody, or a soft, continuous tone can feel so calming. Each moment gently confirms the last. The listening mind, reassured that nothing unexpected is arriving, is free to let its guard slip and drift toward the edge of sleep. When sound breaks its own pattern, the watchful mind wakes a little. A sudden change in volume, an unexpected note, a silence where a beat was due. Each one pulls a thread of attention back toward the surface. The brain treats the unexpected as something worth checking, a small possible signal in the dark. This is why a song full of shifts and turns rarely carries anyone to sleep, however beautiful it may be. Every change quietly renews the mind's alertness. The audio that helps us drift tends to avoid these little jolts, staying even and continuous, so the prediction machine keeps guessing correctly. Sleep favors sound that never asks you to look up and wonder what just happened. A steady, low tone can feel like a hand resting on the shoulder in the dark. Low sounds tend to read as calm and grounded, while high, thin ones can feel more insistent to the listening brain. When a low tone holds without wavering, it offers almost no new information to process. There is nothing to track, nothing to anticipate, only a continuous, unchanging presence. For a nervous system trying to let go, that emptiness of surprise is a kind of comfort. It fills the silence that might otherwise invite hypervigilance, yet it asks nothing in return. Much of what people love about deep, sustained sounds is exactly this: a warmth that carries no demand, a quiet that never once jolts you. This brings us, at last, to the number so many have gathered around: 432. There is a widely shared belief that tuning music so a certain note sits at 432 cycles per second makes it calmer and more healing than the common standard of 440. You may have seen tracks promising deep rest through this single adjustment. It is a gentle and appealing idea. It deserves an honest look rather than either dismissal or hype. People genuinely report feeling soothed by music tuned to 432, and that experience is real to them. What remains uncertain is why. Tonight we hold this belief kindly and carefully. curious about what the evidence actually shows, and just as curious about what it does not. When researchers have looked at 432 versus 440 tuning, the findings have been modest and mixed. A few small studies have reported slightly lower heart rates or a calmer feeling with music tuned to 432, while others have found little clear difference at all. These studies tend to involve few participants. They also vary widely in how they were run, so firm conclusions remain out of reach. The honest summary is that evidence for a special sleep-inducing power in this exact tuning is limited and far from settled. This does not mean the calm listeners feel is imaginary. It means the reason for that calm may well lie elsewhere, in qualities the number itself has quietly been given credit for. It helps to be clear about what 432 actually describes. It is a pitch, a measure of how quickly the air vibrates when a particular note sounds. Here, 432 times each second. Pitch is what lets you tell a low note from a high one. Slower vibrations sound deep. Faster ones sound bright. Tuning to 432 simply shifts a reference note slightly lower than the usual 440. It nudges the whole scale down by a small amount. That is the entire physical difference. A gentle lowering of pitch. Everything else attached to the number. The talk of healing and alignment is meaning we have layered on top. Underneath, it remains a modest choice about where on the scale the music sits. Here lies a gentle but genuine confusion worth untangling. The pitch of a tone and the rhythm of your brainwaves are two entirely different things. A 432 cycle tone is sound moving through air. Hundreds of vibrations each second. The brain's deep sleep rhythm, called the delta band, is far slower. Only about half a cycle to 4 cycles per second. And it is not sound at all, but the pattern of electrical activity across resting neurons. The two live in separate worlds and use the word frequency in unrelated ways. A tone cannot simply hand its pitch to the brain. Whenever you hear that a certain audio frequency matches deep sleep, this is the quiet mix-up hiding inside the claim. It is tempting to imagine the brain humming along at whatever pitch enters the ear. But that is not how hearing works. When a 432 cycle tone arrives, the brain does not begin oscillating 432 times a second to match it. Instead, it processes the sound, recognizes it, and responds through the slower, indirect language of the nervous system. Deep sleep rhythms stay slow whether the music is high or low, tuned to 432 or 440. No tone reaches in and sets the brain vibrating to its own count. Understanding this dissolves a little of the mystery, but it also opens a warmer question. If the number is not tuning the brain directly, then what has all this soothing music actually been doing for us? Step back, and the pattern of the evening quietly rearranges itself. The soothing so many people feel was never proof that a single number reaches in and reprograms the sleeping brain. It has been the work of slow tempo, low pitch, gentle predictability, and a nervous system finally permitted to ease. The question we began with, how can one frequency guide the brain towards sleep has started to turn in our hands. Perhaps it was never the frequency doing the guiding. Perhaps the calm belonged all along to what soft, steady, meaningful sound asks of a body ready to let go. That small shift changes what we look for, and it is where the rest of tonight begins to lead. Once you see it this way, a simple comparison becomes clear. A slow, gentle track tuned to the ordinary 440 will tend to calm you more than a brisk, busy piece tuned to 432. The pace and the softness carry the soothing. The exact tuning contributes very little on its own. This is quietly freeing. It means you are not searching for one hidden setting that unlocks sleep. And you cannot get the number wrong. What tends to matter is how slowly the sound moves, how low and even it stays, and how little it asks of your attention. Tuning is a small detail resting on top of these far larger and simpler qualities that actually reach the body. So a picture of restful sound begins to take shape, drawn from the body rather than from any legend. Sound that helps us drift tends to be low, so it reads as grounded and calm. It tends to be slow, near the pace of a quieting heart. It tends to be predictable, giving the watchful mind nothing new to brace against. And it tends to be gentle enough that the ear's night sentinel feels no reason to wake. None of these qualities depends on a special number. Each speaks instead to the ancient listening system we carry into every dark room. When sound meets these simple conditions, the nervous system reads its surroundings as safe, and rest is free to come closer. Look back over the ground we have crossed, and a single thread runs through it. Sound reaches the brain along fast and ancient pathways. It touches the body's balance of alertness and rest before the mind has even named what it heard. Silence can leave us listening too hard. The wrong music can hold us awake, and the number 432, for all its appeal, tunes a pitch, not a brainwave. What actually soothes is slow, low, predictable, gentle sound, speaking to a nervous system ready to release the day. The question of how a frequency guides us towards sleep has quietly become a question about the body's own listening. And the deeper machinery beneath that calm is what the next part of the night moves toward. You've been with us for a while now, and your breathing has likely softened without you noticing. A soft subscribe helps another sleepless mind find this sanctuary too. Now, let's pause together, one sleepy soul at a time. Somewhere in the dark, the faintest sounds of the room are still reaching you. The hush of the air, the small settling of the walls. Your body is quietly deciding, again and again, that none of it calls for waking. You are not doing this on purpose. It is simply happening, the way it has on every night of your life. The question that just opened, what lies beneath this calm, is unfolding inside you as you listen. Soon we follow it further, into the gentle machinery that turns sound into rest. When a sound is slow and low and asks nothing of you, the body has a quiet way of answering. The autonomic nervous system carries two branches. one that readies you for action, and one that lets you settle. Calm, gentle sound tends to shift the balance toward that second branch, the parasympathetic side, sometimes called rest and digest. Researchers studying relaxing music have watched heart rate ease and muscles loosen as this branch takes over. It is not the tone reaching in and issuing a command. It is the body reading safety in steadiness and choosing, on its own, to let go. There is an old habit the body keeps. It likes to match its rhythms to the sounds around it. When music moves slowly, many people find their breathing lengthening to meet it, without deciding to. Slow phrases invite a longer exhale, and the exhale is where the calming branch of the nervous system does much of its work. Some small studies of slow, steady music have noticed breathing rates drift downward over minutes of listening. The tempo becomes a kind of quiet pacer. You are not told to breathe deeply. The sound simply offers a slower rhythm, and the breath, given permission, follows. The heart, too, listens to tempo. It keeps its own beat, yet it leans toward the pace of the music surrounding it, easing lower when that music is slow. This gentle pull is one reason calm sound feels calming in the chest as well as the mind. As breathing lengthens and the parasympathetic branch grows quieter and steadier, the heart follows the same slow current. Researchers measuring listeners of restful music have often seen a modest drop in heart rate over time. No single frequency commands this. It is tempo, softness, and the absence of anything sudden that let the heart settle. Between each heartbeat, there is a tiny variation in timing, and that variation tells a quiet story. It is called heart rate variability, and a healthy, relaxed body tends to show more of it, a sign the calming branch of the nervous system is engaged. When people rest with slow, gentle sound, this variability often rises, hinting that the body has moved toward ease. It is a subtle marker, not a promise, and it differs from person to person. Still, it offers a window. The flexible spacing between beats reflects a system that feels safe enough to loosen its guard for the night. Underneath all of this sits the electrical hum of the brain itself. In waking alertness, its rhythms run quick and small as a person relaxes. Slower, larger waves begin to appear. Gentle, predictable sound seems to make room for this shift by lowering what scientists call cortical arousal, the general level of activation across the thinking brain. With less to react to and nothing demanding attention, the cortex can ease down through calmer states. This is a drift, not a sudden change, and it unfolds over many minutes. The quieter the input, the more freely those slow waves can gather. A steady sound does something practical as well. It softens the edges of the world. A sudden creak, a passing car, a voice down the hall. Any of these can pull the brain back toward alertness. A continuous, even tone or a stream of gentle music raises the floor of quiet sound just enough to blur those interruptions. This is often called masking. The sleeping mind is less easily snagged when the soundscape stays consistent. It is less about the beauty of the sound than its steadiness. A smooth, unbroken backdrop gives the brain fewer reasons to startle awake and check what changed. Deep in the brain sits a small pair of structures called the amygdala, always scanning for anything that might matter. Sudden or unfamiliar sounds reach it quickly, and it can raise the body's guard before you consciously notice. Gentle, repeating sound gives this watchman little to flag. Over minutes of steady input, the amygdala's vigilance can soften, and the body's readiness to jump quietly eases. It is not that music switches the alarm off. It is that a predictable soundscape offers nothing worth alarming about. So the watchful part of the brain slowly lowers its shoulders and lets the rest of you rest. There is a reflex so fast it happens before thought. The startle response to a sharp, unexpected sound. It tightens muscles and quickens the heart in a fraction of a second. What softens it is predictability. When sound arrives in a smooth, expected pattern, the brain builds a quiet forecast of what comes next, and a forecasted sound carries far less jolt. This is part of why an even, flowing track feels safe. Each moment gently predicts the one after it. The nervous system, no longer bracing for a surprise. Gan unjur. Steadiness, more than any particular pitch, is what disarms the reflex. Music also speaks to memory and reward. A familiar, well-loved track can bring a small, warm sense of pleasure, tied in part to the brain's reward chemistry and its release of dopamine. But for sleep, the gift is less the reward and more the familiarity. A track you have drifted off to before carries the quiet weight of every night it worked. The brain recognizes it and relaxes a step ahead, expecting rest to follow. Novelty asks the mind to pay attention. Familiarity lets it stop paying attention. The comfort of the known is one of sound's gentlest doorways into sleep. Repeat anything besides sleep often enough, and the mind begins to link the two. This is conditioning. The same quiet learning that makes a bedtime routine feel like an invitation to yawn. Play the same gentle sound each night as you settle, and over weeks it becomes a cue, a signal the body reads as the beginning of letting go. The sound itself does no magic. Its power grows from repetition, from being present at the edge of sleep again and again until the brain treats it as part of the descent. In time, the first notes alone can start to loosen the day. Here is where many people quietly struggle. They put on music to sleep, and instead of drifting, they find themselves more awake. Often, the reason is language. Words switch on the brain's language networks, and a lyric invites the mind to follow meaning, to anticipate the next line, to remember. That following is a kind of gentle work, and work keeps the cortex engaged when it is trying to power down. This is not a failing in the listener. It is simply what words do. Sound without lyrics, or with words too soft to pass, leaves the language machinery free to grow quiet Complexity works the same way. Music that shifts and turns, changing keys, building, resolving, keeps a part of the mind listening for what happens next. And a mind that is listening ahead is not yet asleep. This reframes the question we began with. It was never really about one special number carrying a hidden power. What settles a restless mind is sound with little to track. Slow, even, and undemanding enough that attention has nowhere interesting to go. The pull toward deep rest seems to come not from the right frequency, but from the absence of anything the brain feels drawn to follow. The body is full of rhythms. The beat of the heart, the cycle of breath, the daily tide of alertness and sleepiness governed by an inner clock. Sound is rhythmic too, and the two can converse. A slow, regular pulse in music can gently reinforce the body's own drift toward its nighttime setting. A little like a metronome that agrees with where you already want to go. This is subtle, not commanding. The internal clock still runs on light and habit far more than on any song. Yet a steady rhythm, arriving at the right hour, can quietly echo the body's own slowing. Return once more to the breath, because it holds a special key. A long, slow exhale gently stimulates the vagus nerve, the main pathway of the calming branch, easing heart rate with each release. Slow music tends to lengthen those exhales without instruction, and so it borrows this pathway indirectly. Breathe out slowly, and the body reads it as safety. The sound simply makes the slow breath easier to find. This is one of the more grounded ways gentle sound reaches the nervous system, not through any mysterious tuning, but through the plain physiology of an unhurried breath meeting an unhurried song. Set these threads side by side, and a single picture forms. Slow sound lengthens the breath. The longer breath calms the heart. The steady soundscape masks what would startle the watchful brain, finding nothing to flag, lowers its guard, and the familiar track, learned over many nights, tells the body which way it is going. None of this belongs to a single frequency. It belongs to what gentle, predictable, meaningful sound does to a nervous system ready to release the day. The mechanism was never a magic number. It was the body, offered steadiness, remembering how to let itself down into rest. The room has grown quieter around you, and so, perhaps, has the space behind your eyes. If music once kept you awake instead of carrying you down, you can let that memory soften now. This sound asks nothing of you, and there is nothing here to follow. Let one slow breath leave you. We'll keep drifting, gently, through what sound does in the dark. You may have read that playing two slightly different tones, one in each ear, can tune the brain into calmness. This idea is called binaural beats. When your left ear hears one pitch and your right ear hears another close to it, the brain perceives a soft, wavering pulse that neither ear alone produces. The hope is that this pulse gently coaxes brain rhythms to follow along. It is a lovely idea, and many people feel it works for them. Yet when researchers gather the studies together, the results are mixed and often small. Some find a little relaxation, others find none. The honest reading is that the evidence remains thin and uncertain, not settled. The theory behind that pulse is called brainwave entrainment. The notion that if you present a steady rhythm, the brain will fall into step with it. The way people walking together drift into the same stride. There is something real at the edges of this idea. Rhythmic input can nudge attention and arousal in modest ways. But the leap from a gentle influence to reliably steering someone into deep sleep is a long one, and the studies do not support it firmly. The brain is not a tuning fork waiting to match whatever it hears. It listens, interprets, and responds in its own time. It does not simply copy the frequency arriving at the ear. It helps to say plainly why no tone can install deep sleep on command. Delta, the slow rhythm of the deepest rest, is not a channel the brain can be dialed to like a radio station. It is a state the brain drifts into on its own, once the surroundings feel calm and unhurried enough to allow it. A pitch and a brain rhythm are simply different kinds of thing. One, a sound wave in the air. The other, a slow electrical tide across resting neurons. So playing a note cannot hand its count to your neurons. The brain settles when the conditions for settling are finally there, and no arrangement of tones can shortcut that quiet, self-paced descent. When a familiar track seems to carry you towards sleep, part of what you feel may come from expectation itself. And this is worth naming gently, because it is often mistaken for a kind of failure. It is not. The expectation effect, sometimes called placebo, is a real feature of how the mind and body work together. If you believe a sound will soothe you, that belief can lower arousal on its own, softening the very tension that keeps you awake. Your nervous system responds to what it anticipates, not only to what arrives. So the calm you feel is genuine calm, even when part of its source is your own quiet trust that rest is on its way. This is why someone can feel deeply helped by a track labeled with a special number, even if the number itself does nothing measurable. The label sets an expectation that this particular sound was made to relax you, and the expectation gently begins the settling before the first note lands. There is no trick being played on you here. The relaxation is real, only the explanation was slightly off. A person who believes a sound will help them let go often does let go. And the letting go is what mattered all along. Understanding this does not take the calm away. It simply moves the credit from a magic number back to your own capacity to unwind. Another reason the story is more tangled than it first appears is that people differ, quietly and considerably. The same slow track that carries one person under can leave another restless, or even faintly annoyed. Musical taste, memory, mood, and the associations a sound carries all shape how it lands. A melody tied to a bright memory may soothe one listener and stir wakeful feeling in another. There is no single sound that works for everyone, and no frequency that overrides these personal differences. This is not a flaw in the science. It is simply how human nervous systems are, tuned by a lifetime of individual experience, each one arriving at rest by a slightly different path. Sometimes music does not ease you towards sleep at all. It quietly keeps you from it. When a track is engaging, with lyrics to follow, shifting melodies, or a beat that invites attention, the mind stays gently occupied, tracking what comes next. That tracking is the opposite of letting go. Even pleasant music can hold a corner of the brain awake, waiting for the next change. Researchers have noted that some people who fall asleep to lively songs report lighter, more broken rest, and even melodies replaying in the mind after the music stops. The gentlest sounds for sleep tend to be the ones that ask almost nothing of your attention, offering little for the mind to chase. The particular belief in one healing frequency has a story of its own, and it spread widely long before careful testing caught up. For much of the last century, orchestras and recordings settled on tuning their reference note to 440 cycles per second. A quieter tradition preferred 432, describing it as warmer or more natural. Over time, that preference gathered claims beyond music, about the body, the water within it, even the cosmos. And the internet carried those claims from listener to listener. The appeal is understandable. A single number is easy to remember and easy to share. But a story spreading widely is not the same as a story being tested and confirmed. Gather these threads together and a calmer picture appears. Binaural beats remain unproven. Entrainment is, at best, a modest influence. Delta is a state you drift toward, not a pitch. Expectation is real and often helpful. People differ, and engaging music can keep you awake. What survives all of this is not a magic number, but a quieter truth. Unhurried, grounded, steady sound tends to lower arousal in a nervous system that is ready to let go. The comfort you have felt was never a lie. It simply came from what the sound was doing to your body, not from the digits printed on the file. The relief was always yours to have. So the question we began with quietly changes shape. We came asking how one exact frequency could reach in and pull the brain into sleep, as if the right number were a hidden switch. But the frequency was never doing the pulling. That leaves a different, more open question waiting. If no sound can force rest upon a nervous system still braced for something, then what actually lets it stand down? And how do you offer that? Gently. Night after night, the tension sits here. The calm is real, yet it answers to no single tone. What the coming hours follow is not a better number, but the quiet conditions under which a tired body finally, willingly, lets go. What just opened is a quiet kind of loss. The idea that somewhere out there sits one perfect sound to do the settling for you, and the letting go of that idea. That belief may have felt like hope. Notice, if it is there, a small tightness that comes from wondering what to reach for now. But nothing is being taken from you here. The calm you have felt tonight was always your own, arriving through the sound rather than from it. Feel your breath move, slow and unhurried. The hours ahead follow what happens once the reaching stops. A sound routine is less about the track you choose and more about the pattern you keep. Researchers who study sleep habits find that the body learns by repetition, gathering small cues that tell it the day is closing. When the same gentle sound returns each night, it stops being new information the mind has to examine and becomes part of the landscape of rest. The routine is the quiet architecture around the sound. Over time, the sound and the settling begin to arrive together, until one gently invites the other, without any effort on your part. Volume matters more than most people expect. A sound played too loudly keeps the ear working, tracking each rise and fall, while a sound kept just above silence lets the body soften around it. Sleep researchers tend to favor low levels, quiet enough to blur into the room rather than stand apart from it. The goal is not to fill the space, but to take the sharp edges off it. When the sound sits gently beneath your attention, the nervous system reads it as part of a calm room, and there is less for the mind to hold. Tempo speaks to the body in a language older than melody. Of all a sound's qualities, its pace may be the one the body reads most directly, quicker than it reads pitch, and long before it notices tuning. A slow unfolding, near the speed of a quiet pulse, signals a world in no hurry, while a faster one keeps a subtle momentum humming underneath. This is why where a note sits on the scale matters far less than how slowly it arrives. The body is always listening for a pace to settle into, and an unhurried one gives it somewhere lower to go. Predictability is one of the quiet ingredients of restful sound. The brain runs a constant, low background check on its surroundings, listening for anything unexpected. A track full of unexpected turns keeps that checking alive, while a familiar, repeating sound lets it stand down. When each moment of the sound roughly matches what came before, the mind stops bracing for the next turn. There is comfort in knowing, in some wordless way, what is coming. A predictable sound is not dull to a tired body, it is safe. And safety is what allows the guarding to loosen. Consistency turns an ordinary sound into a signal. When you return to the same gentle track night after night, the body begins to pair it with the act of settling down. This is a form of conditioning, the same quiet learning that makes a familiar chair feel like rest. The sound itself does nothing to your brainwaves, but the association grows real. In time, the first few notes can begin the softening before your thoughts have caught up. What started as background sound becomes a small, reliable cue that the day is finished and the letting go can begin. The learning behind a sleep cue is gentle and gradual. Each night, the sound and the calm arrive close together, and the brain, always looking for patterns, links the two. There is no effort involved. The pairing forms on its own through repetition. Over many nights, the sound gathers meaning it did not have at first, until it carries a kind of quiet promise of rest. This is why a chosen track can grow more soothing over weeks, not less. Familiarity is not dullness here. It is the slow building of a bond between a sound and the feeling of coming down. A steady sound at bedtime can act like a soft boundary at the edge of the day. The waking hours are full of open loops. Tasks half finished. Conversations still turning over. A familiar sound, returning each night, can mark a line between that busyness and the quiet that follows. It tells the nervous system, in a language without words, that nothing more will be asked tonight. The body reads the signal and begins to lower its guard. In this way, the sound is less a lullaby than a gentle closing of the door, letting the day stay outside. Sound and breath can move together in a quiet partnership. Slow, flowing music tends to draw the breath toward its own unhurried pace, lengthening each cycle without any conscious counting. Researchers studying calm states find that slower breathing gently shifts the body toward its resting branch, the parasympathetic side that lowers heart rate and softens tension. The sound becomes something the breath can lean on, a rhythm to follow downward. You do not steer it. You simply let the music carry the air in and out a little more slowly, and the body follows the sound into stillness. There is a small asymmetry in breathing that the body finds soothing. When the exhale grows a little longer than the inhale, the calming branch of the nervous system tends to answer, easing the pulse with each release. Slow sound makes this natural, giving the breath a long, unbroken line to trail along. There is nothing to measure or count. As the music stretches out, the out-breath stretches with it, and the heart settles a fraction lower on each one. The body has always known this rhythm. Gentle sound simply reminds it, and lets the longer exhale do its quiet work. Forcing the breath rarely brings calm, letting it be carried does. When you try to control each inhale, a thread of effort stays awake, the very effort that keeps sleep at a distance. A slow sound offers another way. Instead of directing the breath, you let the music hold the pace and follow along loosely, the way you might drift with a slow current. The breathing deepens because it is allowed to, not because it is managed. This is the difference between reaching for rest and letting rest arrive. The sound does the leading, and you are free to simply follow. Attention can rest on a sound the way a hand rests on a warm surface. Rather than analyzing the music, picking apart its notes, or wondering what comes next, you can let your awareness settle lightly onto it and stay. This soft kind of listening asks nothing. The sound becomes a place for attention to lean, a single gentle thing to be near while everything else loosens. When the mind has one quiet anchor, it stops wandering through the day's unfinished thoughts. The sound is not a puzzle to solve. It is a resting place, and attention is glad to have one. Listening closely and drifting off pull in opposite directions. When you study a sound, tracking its patterns or waiting for a favorite part, the mind stays lightly engaged. And engagement is a low form of wakefulness. This is one reason music with lyrics or shifting complexity can hold sleep at bay. There is always something more to follow. A sample. Familiar sound gives the analyzing mind little to do, and it quietly gives up the task. The less there is to figure out, the sooner attention softens. Sleep tends to come not from concentrating on sound, but from ceasing to. There is a middle place between gripping a sound and ignoring it, and rest often lives there. In soft focus, you are aware of the sound without holding on to it, letting it move through without chasing it. The mind is neither empty nor busy. It simply rests near the sound, like water settling around a stone. This gentle attention keeps the racing thoughts at a comfortable distance without creating new effort. It is a way of being with sound rather than working at it. From this quiet nearness, the drift towards sleep can begin on its own, unforced and unhurried. Simple sound offers the mind fewer handholds. A complex piece, full of turns and layers, keeps giving the brain new things to notice, and each new thing is a small reason to stay awake. A plain, gentle sound, by contrast, gives little to grasp, and the mind slowly loosens its grip. This is why the plainest tracks often work best at the edge of sleep, not the richest ones. There is a kind of mercy in a sound that asks for nothing. With less to hold, the hands of the mind open, and the whole body begins to follow them down. A sound can be meaningful and simple at the same time, and that pairing tends to soothe more than any special quality of the tone. Meaning gives the sound a gentle emotional warmth, a sense of belonging to your own nights. Simplicity keeps the mind from working. Together they make a sound that feels like yours, yet asks nothing of you. This is the quiet reason a chosen, familiar track can outperform a sound praised for a precise property it supposedly carries. It is not the hidden virtue of the note that helps you. It is the ease of a sound you already trust. It is worth noticing why the story of a special sound holds such appeal. A single number is easy to believe in. It promises that rest is a matter of finding the right key. The quieter truth is less tidy. What settles you is not one property of the tone, but a whole, gentle pattern. Soft volume, slow pace, familiarity, and a body allowed to come down. The question that has followed us is turning here. It was never which frequency unlocks sleep. It was what conditions let a guarded nervous system finally loosen and stop holding on. Seen kindly, a favored number can still serve a purpose, just not the one it claims. If believing a sound is special helps you relax into it, that belief becomes a small doorway to calm. And the calm is real even when the mechanism is not. The number becomes a placeholder for permission, a reason to stop searching and settle. There is no harm in that, as long as the real work is understood. The sound is not tuning your brain. It is giving your mind somewhere gentle to land, and your body the signal that it is finally allowed to rest. Timing can deepen what a sound routine begins. When the same gentle sound returns at roughly the same hour each night, it joins the body's own sense of when rest is due. The internal clock reads the pattern of light, activity, and quiet. And a steady sound at a steady time becomes one more cue folded into that rhythm. The body starts to anticipate rest before the sound even plays. In this way, the routine works on two levels at once: the learned association of the sound and the deeper daily rhythm, both leaning the same direction, toward the coming down of night. A sound does its gentlest work as part of a whole quiet setting. A cool, dark, a familiar room gives the nervous system many small signals of safety at once, and the sound joins them rather than carrying the whole weight alone. Lowered lights ease the body toward its evening chemistry. A comfortable temperature lets it release heat and soften. The sound smooths the last rough edges of noise. No single piece is the answer. Together they form an environment that quietly agrees it is time to rest. The sound is one voice in a room that has already begun to hush. The deepest value of steady sound may show itself later, in the middle of the night. Sleep is not one long descent, but a series of lighter and deeper passages. And in the lighter stretches, a sudden noise can lift you briefly to the surface, sometimes without any memory of it in the morning. A continuous, even sound keeps the contrast low, so a passing car or a creak does not stand out sharply enough to wake you. Researchers find this can mean fewer of those brief awakenings across the whole night. The result is not deeper magic, but smoother continuity. A night with fewer small interruptions stitched through it. Underneath every part of a good sound routine sits one quiet mechanism. Calming sound lowers physiological arousal, easing the body from its alert branch toward its resting one. Heart rate drifts down, muscles loosen, the mind's vigilance softens. This is the plain reality beneath the poetry, and it asks for no special frequency to work. Unhurried, even, the familiar sound simply nudges the nervous system in the direction it already wants to go at night. Everything else, the volume, the tempo, the familiarity, is a way of helping that single shift along. Rest is a lowering, and gentle sound helps it lower. The heart quietly tells the story of a body coming down. As calming sound eases the nervous system toward rest, the pulse tends to slow and the small. Natural variation between beats often grows, a sign that the resting branch is gaining the lead. You will not feel this shift as an event. It moves too gently for that. But it is happening beneath the music. A slow handover from the vigilance of the day to the ease of the night. The sound is not commanding the heart. It only keeps company while the body makes that handover in its own time. Falling asleep is not a task you can succeed at by trying harder. It is a release, something that happens when effort finally stops. This is the gentle irony many tired people meet. The more they work at sleep, the further it retreats, because the working itself keeps a part of them awake. A sound routine helps precisely because it gives that effort somewhere to go, letting attention rest on something soft instead of straining toward rest itself. There is nothing here to achieve. There is only something to loosen, and the sound is there to help you loosen it. The reason a routine grows stronger over time is that it becomes yours. A sound, repeated across many nights, gathers your own history around it. The particular calm of your own room. Your own settling. No study can hand you this. It is built. Night by night. Out of return. That personal familiarity is part of why one gentle track can soothe you when another, praised for some special quality, does nothing. The soothing lives in the relationship, not the recording. What helps you drift is not a sound anyone could prescribe, but the one you have quietly taught yourself to rest to. Here is what the nights of listening have been quietly assembling, piece by piece. What carries you towards sleep was never sealed inside a single frequency, waiting for the right number to release it. It is what slow, low, familiar sound does to a body that is finally allowed to come down. The arousal lowers. The breath lengthens. The guard loosens. And the mind is given one gentle place to rest. The number was only ever a story wrapped around that simpler truth. It was never the tone that let you go. It was your own nervous system, permitted at last to stop holding on. Right now, the sound in the room is moving through you the way a slow tide moves through shallow water. Arriving, receding, arriving again. Your breath has found its longer line. The out-breath trails further than an hour ago, and the heart has leaned lower and slower with each release. Something is gathering toward a single idea, that the calm you were looking for was never a key to be found and turned. It was only ever a body letting down its guard, a mind given somewhere soft to rest. You can stop searching now. There is nothing left to unlock. And the last stretch of the night follows the sound the rest of the way down. You can stop searching for the perfect track now. Somewhere in you there is a quiet belief that the right sound, the exact one, is still out there, and that finding it is the thing standing between you and rest. It isn't. The sound tonight only has to be gentle enough to let you stop looking. The searching was the part that kept you awake. Your body already knows how to quiet itself. It has done this every night of your life, long before you ever thought to help it along. The slowing of the breath, the loosening of the shoulders, the softening behind the eyes. None of it waits for your instruction. Tonight, you are not learning something new. You are letting something old and practiced finally take over. Sound was never a switch that turns sleep on. There is no button hidden in a tone, no lever a frequency pulls. What gentle sound offers is quieter than that. A companion for the dark, something steady to rest your attention against while the body does its slow work. It does not make you sleep. It keeps you company until you no longer need company at all. The number was never the point. Whether a tone is tuned one way or another, the difference is far smaller than the stories around it suggest. What your nervous system responds to is slowness, softness, and the sense that nothing is being demanded of it. A tuning cannot give you that. Only the gentleness underneath it can. You were never missing the right number. You were only tired. You can let the track simply play now, without grading it. For so long the listening came with a quiet audit. Is this working? Is this the one? Is it helping yet? That audit is its own kind of wakefulness. Tonight, you can let the sound be ordinary and unremarkable. Neither perfect nor wrong, just present. When you stop measuring the sound, it finally gets to hold you. Your heart is already finding its slower pace. You did not tell it to. Somewhere in the last hour, it eased, the way it always does when the day stops arriving in waves. Your breath has lengthened too, unhurried, without your counting. This is the body keeping its oldest promise, that when the noise finally thins, it knows the way down. All you gave it was the quiet to do so. The gentlest sound asks nothing back from you. It does not want to be understood, or followed, or figured out. There are no words to hold, no melody to trace to its end. It simply stays, low and even, the way a warm room stays warm. You can lean the whole weight of your attention on it, and it will not tire, will not falter, will not ask you to stay awake for its sake. You can forget the number entirely now. Whatever it was, 400 and something, a figure that promised so much. It can leave your mind and take nothing with it. The rest you are drifting toward does not check tunings at the door. It only notices whether you have stopped bracing. And you have a little more with each breath. The figure is gone, and you are still being carried. There is nothing left for you to get right tonight. No setting to adjust. No volume to perfect. No last thing to try before you are allowed to rest. The searching mind can set down its checklist. Sleep was never a test you could pass or fail by choosing the correct sound. It comes to those who stop trying to earn it. And you are learning, gently, how to stop. Even now, the descent is quietly underway. The parts of you that keep watch through the day are standing down, un by un, without announcement. You may not feel the moment it happens. You rarely do. But the tide has turned. The body has slipped from guarding into resting, from listening into being. Nothing you thought or chose made this happen. It happened because you finally let it. Steady sound in the dark can feel like someone breathing softly nearby. Not speaking, not needing anything, just present enough that the room no longer feels empty. That presence is part of why gentle sound soothes. The oldest part of you reads it as company, and company means safety. And safety is where the guarding stops. Tonight the sound sits beside you like that. You are not falling asleep alone. The story was always simpler than it pretended to be. A single number, a secret tuning, a hidden key. It made rest sound like something you could unlock if only you knew the trick. But the truth underneath is softer and kinder. There was no trick. There was only a tired body and the slow, ordinary sound that let it stop. You did not miss the secret. There was never one to miss. Let the sound become weather now. Something happening around you that no longer asks for your attention. Rain does not ask to be listened to. It simply falls, and you sleep through it, softened by its steadiness. The track can be like that. No longer a thing you are using, just a texture in the air. When sound stops being a task, it becomes a place. Rest there. You can trust the body to finish this without you. It does not need you awake to oversee the last steps down. Like a boat that keeps drifting after the oars are set aside, you will move towards sleep whether or not you are watching. The watching was only ever a habit, not a requirement. Let it go, and let the body carry you the rest of the way home. The sound will keep going gently after you have gone. You are free to drift off before it ends. It does not really end, and it does not mind. Long after your attention has slipped loose and sunk under, the track continues its quiet company for the empty room, for the dark, for no one. There is something restful in that. The sound asks nothing of you, not even your listening. Your body was never answering a frequency. It was answering slowness. It was answering the softness of a sound that did not spike or surprise, the evenness that let it predict what came next and so let down its guard. Any gentle thing could have offered that. The tone you chose happened to be the one that was there. It was never the pitch that reached you. It was the calm the pitch was carrying. You were already allowed to rest, long before you found the right sound. That was the quiet mistake in the searching, believing the permission lived inside the track, when it was always yours to give. The sound did not grant you sleep. It only reminded you that you could stop holding the day. You can give yourself that now, with any sound or none. The allowing was always the only key. The quiet you were looking for was inside you the whole time. Not in a speaker, not in a number, not in the perfect playlist. In the nervous system that has always known how to soften once the day releases its grip. The sound only pointed the way back to it. Tonight, you have found it again. The way you find a room in the dark, by feel. It was never lost. It was only waiting. You can let the sound fade in importance now. It brought you here, steady, patient, undemanding, and that was enough. Like a companion who walks you to the door and has no reason to come inside. It has done its part. From here the dark takes over, and it expects even less of you than the sound did. You can let go of the track, and let go of the letting go. So it comes down to something plain. Not a magic tone, not a rescued frequency, not a number tuned just so. Only a tired body, a quiet room, and a sound gentle enough to let the tiredness win. That is all it ever was. And it is all you have tonight, and all you were ever missing. The plainness of it is the mercy. Rest was always this simple. There is nothing more for you to do. You have arrived at the end of the doing. The last hour asked for your attention, and now even that request is lifting away. What remains cannot be worked at or reached for. It can only be received. So receive it. Let the final wakeful thought loosen and drift off without you. You have done enough. You were always enough. You are very close now. The thoughts have grown farther apart. The sounds have blurred at their edges. And the difference between listening and dreaming has almost dissolved. You are not the one who crosses the last of it. It crosses on its own, the way dusk becomes night without a single moment you could name. Let the sound thin to a thread, and let the thread go. You are nearly there. You can let the whole search rest now, for good. Tomorrow there will be no perfect track to hunt for, because there was never one to find, and the finding was never the point. There is only this, again and again. A soft sound, a quiet dark, a body that knows the way. That is always available to you. It was never rare, never hidden. It was only ever waiting to be let in. And so the number quietly disappears, the way a question dissolves once you no longer need its answer. You came looking for a frequency, and you are leaving with something gentler. The knowledge that you were never broken, never missing the trick, never doing it wrong. You were only a person, tired, who wanted to rest. And rest, it turns out, was never withheld. It was only waiting for you to stop reaching. You do not need a special number tonight. You never did. You need only let the sound carry you, the way water carries what stops struggling against it, the way the dark carries the tired without asking anything in return. There is no perfect frequency waiting to save you. There is only this gentleness, already holding you, already enough. Let it carry you now. You are safe to let go. 100 facts ago, we asked why a frequency could pull a restless mind down into sleep. We followed sound from the ear into the parts of the brain that decide, moment by moment, whether it is safe to let go. We watched slowness lower the body's guard, watched predictability quiet the search for threat, watched the magic number story come apart in our hands. What began as a question about one exact tone became an answer about a nervous system, tired and gentle, finally allowed to stop. You came for a number, and you leave with something truer. The calm was never sealed in a frequency. It lived in you, in a body that always knew how to come down. If this gentle hour finally let the sound soothe you instead of keeping you awake, a soft like, subscribe, or share helps it reach another restless mind still hunting for the perfect track. One quiet tap, one peaceful night at a time. Right now, a sound somewhere is moving through the dark air of your room. A low, even tone spreading out and softening as it goes, brushing the walls without disturbing them. It fills the quiet without disturbing it. You are not listening to it anymore. You are simply inside it, the way you are inside the dark. Let your whole self loosen into that soft, even sound. There was never a number to reach. Only this, carrying you, the way it was always going to. You can let these last thoughts settle now, like a tone fading into the quiet it came from, leaving no edge behind. Let your breath slow to the pace the dark keeps. If sleep comes, let it carry you the way the sound did, gently, taking nothing in return. The healing playlist keeps returning to this same quiet, softening one restless mind after another. The next hour follows the part of tonight the sound did not have time to say. That hour is waiting whenever you are ready. Should the dark already have your eyes, there is no track left to cue. Let them stay closed. Rest well, restless one. You never needed a perfect frequency, only to let the sound carry you. Where healing sounds like nothing more than letting go. Good night.